Welcome to another episode of the Brick+Work podcast. This format or this episode is a bit different from the other ones that we've recorded. So I wanted to welcome Mia. She's a part of the Brick+Work team, helping me actually book guests for the podcast, but she also helps with marketing and sales and all that. So she's super great. And Jordan actually is from Irvine Associates. So I just wanted to clarify, my partner, Alex Irvine, runs a full land use consulting firm in downtown. It's where a lot of we get this information on the Brick+Work reports for. And they're actively working with developers to get letters of determination and all the way to RTI on these development projects. So they're kind of the consultants that you would work with as soon as you close escrow or you decide this is the project that you want to build. So welcome, guys.
Hi.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Cool. So yeah, I wanted to kind of change things up a bit. I want to kind of discuss more land use topics. I think the guests that we've had in the past, obviously early adopters for Brick+Work, that are mostly commercial brokers or an architect, right? That kind of are sharing their use cases, and that's fine. That's the majority of our users are commercial brokers. But now I wanted to bring you guys in to discuss some topics that we haven't been able to in the past. So now, Jordan, I want to bring you in on ADUs or accessory dwelling units. Now, I know that it was initially passed a few years ago. There's been updates and new iterations every year. I think maybe the way to describe it has been, they were initially restrictive in the beginning, but they're getting looser, if that makes any sense, with the standards, right? So yeah, if you want to do it just very, general description of what an ADU is, and I guess what's the purpose of these ADUs?
Sure. And so, thanks again for, having me. I appreciate it very much. But yeah, basically, if you think about it, it's kind of just reinventing the wheel for lack of a better term, not to discredit this incentive or program by any means, but these have been notoriously known as granny flats over the decades. And so granny flats is nothing new. It's, you go convert your detached garage, you move in grandma or whatever, and there you go, right? So now, as you had mentioned, it's becoming kind of a loosening of these restrictions. And I think, again, why you think this program is here is because, in a perfect world, it's supposed to help home affordability, right? It essentially, those who can't afford a 5, 6, 7, whatever, close to a seven-figure mortgage, right? They can't carry a loan at 30, 20, 15-year fixed costs, right? Mm-hmm. So the only way to really do it is if you can somehow debt service or offset some of that income. And so if you have that structure, if you have that 2-car garage, that's enough for a studio, right? And rent, most of you here, I'm sure, are brokers, and if you guys know where rents are going in LA, we are very COVID resilient. It seems like here in LA, and it seems like rents are although they are kind of plateauing, I feel like a little bit, they are kind of still way up there. And so a studio easily, almost no matter where you are in LA, 12, 15, 1,800 a month. And so that's a lot of income for the mom and pop, or for anyone, for the millennial, for the young couple starting family that needs a little bit of something to get their starter home going, because I think not everyone wants that infill urban style living. Some people wouldn't mind getting out there and kind of having that backyard space. Again, as I said, in a perfect world, this is meant for home, to help increase home buyers, but you are seeing this as a tool for investment, as a tool for developers. And in the most recent iteration of the ADU ordinance, it applies to now multifamilies. So this is a ever-evolving ordinance, always a topic of discussion at cities and planning and land use meetings, and just curious to see where we'll be this time next year.
Yeah. So, what are your thoughts, Mia, on ADU?
I just wonder, are we seeing that happen yet with the multifamily units? Are they starting to have the ADUs now?
So we're starting to see, like, for example, like, so I think the way this ordinance is intended is for folks to really, it's for the folks that have maybe a fourplex or eightplex or 12, 16, something to, if they have a little bit of excess parking, if they have a rec room, if they have a boiler room, something that's not residential square footage that could be converted to something, excess closet space, whatever, then for every 4 legal units you have, you're entitled to 1 ADU, right? So if you have the fourplex, you get another ADU. You have the eightplex, you get 2. You have 12, you get 3, right? So I haven't really seen too much of those. I hope they are being used, but in all honesty, what the interest we are getting right now are from developers saying at a much larger level, much larger scale, hey, we're building 100 units, 200 units, 50, I don't know, 250. We're purposely going to build a little bit extra parking spaces so we can come back, and if we have 100 units, we come back, we get 1 for every 4. That's another 25, 80. So we're seeing a lot of those types of questions, kind of like creative, outside the box. I don't really think it's meant to be, but I think in speaking with building officials, I think if one were to apply for that, technically it's within the realm, right? But whether or not that becomes a point of contention or topic of discussion politically or within the city departments for let's say planning department, for example, and could this be fine-tuned or finessed in the future? Absolutely. I mean, it's just a matter of we have to see how it unfolds. But yeah, to answer your question, it's intended for these smaller multifamily, but the interest we're really getting is kind of from these larger 100 plus uniters.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
Where is that in the pipeline? So I know a lot of these, they're obviously state bills, right? And then they either get passed exactly as written or as proposed, or they kind of get edited down. So maybe the initial intent was to be very, open. And then I know a couple iterations of these bills in previous years relied on more of a that city or that county to then determine, what restrictions they wanted to add on the ADU. So the size or attached, detached, like all that stuff. Is this a current proposal right now? And does it get voted in at the end of the year or beginning of next year?
So the ADU was probably it was revamped. And I apologize, I didn't really brush up too clearly on this, but I want to say it was probably revamped somewhere between 2014 and 2016. I think there was a lawsuit brought to the city. I think at the time, very restricted, nothing more than I think 500 or 640 square feet, I think was the maximum for the ADU at the time. And as a result of several lawsuits and whatnot, and I think some really strong very firm touch from the state, for lack of a better word. They came with the state ADU ordinance that said, hey guys, you can't, 1,200, everyone gets 1,200 square feet, right? And I want to say that 1,200 rule has probably been around since maybe 2016, right? But then over the years, it's been updated. So to answer the short answer is yes, this is in effect, right? And every year it kind of gets tapered a little bit lighter and lighter. So originally it was like a 1,200 square foot ADU. And then you required the carport. Then it became less stringent if you're within certain linear footage of a stop. You're exempt from the carport, right? So then it became even less strict. And then you started hearing about junior accessory dwelling units, which you essentially get 3 lots on the property now. And I think a little hook to that is you have to be the actual homeowner. I don't think you could be for an investment purpose. I don't know if there's some type of covenant or document involved, but for homeowners, you can do, if you're truly owner occupied, you could do it as a junior ADU up to 500 square feet. And now up to recently, as of January 1st of this year, multifamily, you can get 1 ADU for every 4. Let's see what happens January 1st, 2021. Is it going to apply to like hotel conversions, office space? I guess technically in today, any commercial space can be change to resident. But it's just curious to know how else this can, like I said, it's been ever evolving, I want to say, since 2014.
Yeah, that's great. Mia, so I think you have, so we're essentially, what we could just talk about is that we're in the midst of a new report launch for Brickwork in regards to design, obviously commercial uses, right? So a lot of our users have asked, can you provide information when it comes to different commercial use, so hotel, or creative office, redevelopment purposes. So we're going to be launching that. I think the other spectrum that Mia could talk about is the request that we've been getting from single lot subdivision developers. And so this obviously ADU is something that we want to also include the latest information on. So how are we doing on that front?
So for our new reports, we are working on launching, like you said, more into depth on commercial uses. So for example, like if you had a specific commercial use in mind and you wanted to know what parking standards you needed to meet for that, or what open space, that would all now be in the report as well with the new launch. And then in terms of like the single family lots and ADUs, for our pro users especially, where we offer sort of that extra research and in-depth into their questions, you know, sometimes we do get those like, well, can we have an ADU here? You know, does that interfere with any of the specific plans? Is there an overlay that means that that's restricted or not? So we'll go in and figure all that out for them.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're super excited to be launching this, Jordan. I know you're probably hearing this for the first time, but you know, a part of that, what I could announce as of now, we still can't disclose the actual firm as of yet, but hoping to do that. So I'm not going to disclose it here because I actually want this to be published, obviously, or posted on our YouTube prior and not hold back on it. But so we're actually also partnering with the design and architecture firm to help us with kind of a massing analysis. And so what that is we've been getting requests all the time from both ends of the spectrum, right? So we get it from single lot subdivision developers that are like, look, what can I do here on this West Adams 10,000 square foot lot? I mean, can I get 2 duplexes on here? Can it be 2 stories? How many square feet? What's the space in between the 2 structures? And so a lot of the times when it's such an empty canvas, right? We always said, well, that's what your architect has to step in, right? You have to hire an architect to give them direction on design and site plan, where the parking spot is and all that. So, and then on the other end, for the skinny lots in downtown, let's just say, that has no residential density limit. Well, okay, that's great that we at Brickwork provide that, but like, what should be the likely massing on that? Does that make sense? So should this go 100% affordable? Should it go market rate? Should it be a tower? Should it be above grade parking? So this is all questions that we're going to start answering in the on our new report that we're going to provide. It's going to be an add-on to our pro users. And, you know, I think right now it's relevant for this discussion because, you know, Jordan, we're going to be hopefully getting a lot of fix and flippers. And so these fix and flippers slash, you know, they only want to build the single family luxury spec, you know what I'm talking about? Or maybe the duplexes or up to 4 units, let's just say. That's the limit, right, that they want to do. We want to provide this massing analysis included with the ADU report. What do you think about that launching soon?
I think this is a great tool. I think this would appeal to, you know, because not everybody has the capitals to go do these, you know, whale, shark, whatever deals, right? I mean, most of LA are you know, we're mom and pop flippers here, right? So I think there's a huge market for this, and I think ADUs is a excellent strategy to include into any type of real estate portfolio, whether you're single family or multifamily commercial. I think yeah, there would definitely be a demand. And I know earlier, I think you had just touched on single lot splits, right? There's a proposal coming from the state, SB 1120 or AB 1120, I believe, where it's up, where, if passed, if you're in an R1 or single family zone and you are only proposing a single lot split, meaning you're taking one lot and making two, not 3 or 4, it can't be part of another subdivision, has to be entirely on its own, then they are trying to find more of a by right administerial process, so you don't have to go through such a public hearing. And if that's the, then great. I mean, I think I totally see that as a program or an incentive taking off, much similar to the ADU ordinance. So absolutely, I think this will be a great amenity to Brick+Work. I think there definitely be ways to finesse it in the future as these new state ordinances come down the pipeline. But absolutely. For sure. Absolutely.
So Jordan, let's just go a little deeper on that one, just more of it for our audience to see how huge that would be. So from my understanding, so from a layman, right, not with the land use or urban planning degree or background, would be, so from what I know, subdivisions are a difficult, long process. Let's just say, and it's hard to estimate, right, because they're all different depending on which city, which, if they're a coastal commission that you have to clear, or
temperature of the community, temperature of the residents, neighborhood, absolutely. Yeah.
Hey, let's just
political climate, absolutely.
Let's put a placeholder and say it's a year to 15 months. So 12 to 15 months.
Or 2 years, yeah.
Or 2 years, yeah. Right. So now, if that's the usual normal process to subdivide now, right? What you're saying when it's by right, how does that drastically save?
So
what are the estimates?
When I read this, right, by right essentially means just a building and safety action, right? And so if they're suggesting that, then they're suggesting just a plan check, right? And if it's just a plan check, 3 months, 6 months, right? Just depends on how many series of corrections you have to go through and how complex how complex the structures are. But yeah, I mean, again, this is just strictly in the hopper. This is not a law. This is strictly new, right? This is not like the ADU. This is its own subdivision type, not accessory. Yeah. So, but no, if approved, this, yeah, very interesting.
Yeah, it'll be huge. I just hope that even if it's watered down, it's again maybe towards that goal. Meaning, it might have been restrictive, the ADUs initially, but you know how it got more opened up and liberal.
So again, I think the whole premise of ADUs, again, it all goes back to home affordability, right? And so they tried to do it so they can rent the back, offset, right? But I think slowly but surely they realize, well, the capital to even repurpose the garage or to, even that is not, 30, 40, 50, 100, that folks want to have that, So I think what they're trying, and like, let's say even if you were to, get, I don't know, 5 heads together, borrow from your aunts, whatever, grandparents, whoever you can, right?
Yeah.
If you get it done, it's great. But then $1,800 a month, $1,500, it's nice. I'm sure it's a nice return in relation to what you just spent, but it's breadcrumbs in relation to what you really need to survive. So I think what the state saw here is they need to find a way to sell off, to fee simple that land, right? And that's really how one can maybe benefit from. So I think that's kind of why you saw this initiative here, because they realized, hey, the ADU was great, and we see people doing it, but still maybe not exactly what we wanted. Didn't really, provide home relief as much as it should have. So I think they're trying to find other alternatives here. It's like the idea is like, okay, we understand you do the capital, you get a little bit of rent, but it's really in the long run or the short run, really nothing in it for you. So I think they want to now enable folks to do, maybe lot split off the ADU, who knows, right? So let's see what happens.
Absolutely. Yeah, there was so many bills that were I think the assemblyman is Scott Wiener, if I'm not mistaken.
He is not well liked here in Southern California.
Very well. He's very yes in my backyard, right? Yes. So he's always looking for, obviously, relaxing zoning and land use laws all over California. I remember one of his bills were something about all R1s would be by right R4 or something.
I thought it was duplexes. Yeah, I saw something like all R1s now become R2s by right.
Just by right. Just by right. That would
single family no longer becomes a zone in our zoning code.
Yes, yes, exactly. So I don't know. It seemed kind of forward-thinking, or maybe controversial when it was first, proposed a few years back. But I think post-pandemic, and we really kind of have to get a little bit radical when it comes to updates on these zoning laws. I feel I think there's a lot of room for redevelopment. But Mia, so I kind of want to bring you in on this conversation. What are you have any questions or thoughts, just based on the sheer amount of our user requests, demands? I think you have a good purview of where our users are requesting reports, and that kind of is a telltale sign of which neighborhoods are hot. I think obviously Hollywood has been, but these nooks and crannies. When I mentioned West Adams, right?
Right, a lot of West Adams.
Yeah, they were. I'm mentioning them for a reason. I think our users are starting to demand them. But yeah,
yeah, I think especially when you see these sites falling in that sort of tier 4 opportunity zone, that's when we especially sort of see a lot of those requests come in. It seems like a lot of our users are really after those ones where you can have that high density build. And especially with using that tier 4, they get that 80% increase on the density units. So we see a lot of those. Yeah, like you said, West Adams. We are still seeing a lot of Hollywood, a lot of Koreatown too.
yeah,
Yeah, a lot of Koreatown. Yeah, and I think it's interesting with the whole R1, like possibly becoming not R1, becoming R2, right? It sort of raises that question, like, I mean, I don't know if that's a good thing, right? Or not a good thing.
Is it too extreme or
right.
Yeah, or not extreme enough, right? I mean, who's to say?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, just for the perspective of it seems so many layers to this problem, right, or argument, right? It's a lot of gray area. I think when you just blanket a statement or be very general, right, and you said, well, increase zoning, all housing everywhere all the time. No, I think that's being extreme on that end, but then also not in my backyard. We don't want any sort of, multifamilies or more density in any areas. I think that obviously is the wrong answer too. I think it needs to be somewhere in the middle, but look, data has been already out for years, right? So, and these are independent studies, whether they're from Harvard or Stanford or, all right, I won't stop name dropping Ivy schools only, but, even UCLA and USC, obviously, right, have done independent studies where there is not enough affordable housing in and around LA or Southern California right now, right? And so if that's kind of the issue or the problem, I think the solution has to come in multiple areas. So one, interview I did with Daniel Gaiman, or regarding some, lower cost builds, so modular builds, right? Like offsite builds. Maybe that could be a part of this. Yeah, I agree. Like, I think we should obviously look to lower the construction costs, right? Because if a developer wants to build affordable housing, the issues are always high construction costs, high labor, high land costs. My investors need a yield, right? I need to give them back 8, 9, 10%, or I think even more, right? When it comes to development, then how are you going to achieve that when everything is working against it? So I think it should be a lot of different answers. So now I guess I mentioned, I guess, before this that the topics end up being the same, but look, it's the elephant in the room. We have to discuss, COVID-19. We got to discuss this pandemic, and the reason why we're all doing this interview via Zoom, or have been doing podcasts or things like of this nature. So, but I want to talk about, I guess, what your opinions are, or if you can share anything in regards to what the cities and states. So do you think these proposals that are coming from the state, or maybe do you think the planning department or the planning director for even LA, are they leaning more toward being open to these new proposals post-pandemic, right? Meaning, do you think now the climate has changed politically to be more open to that? Or do you think that has no relevance? This was always a kind of push and pull argument, right? For and against, and it's just a proposal for versus against. What do you guys think?
I mean, to start, I mean, yeah, I think those that are in City Hall who are kind of very like, I don't know, you know, I hate this term, but you know, like anti-development or right? Because I think there's different variations of it, but I think those who kind of have that mindset, I think, you know, irrespective of COVID, I think they still kind of, I don't think they think that. I don't think much is loosened up, I would say, right? I think most still recognize, you know, because the city, keep in mind, they're the ones that issued the building permits, right? And I'm sure when they see that real estate is still all well and this and that, I mean, that concern I don't think is really, and I mean, we do have a housing shortage here right now, and you know, whether or not, and you know, most recently, you know, I think we're going to end up having a larger problem here with the rent moratoriums that have been going on, and so I think whether or not more, you know, efforts will be kind of shifted more towards how to alleviate kind of what's going on over there with the moratoriums, and kind of shift more against like, okay, well, maybe we should allow for housing, could potentially be I guess a mindset that can kind of grow stem over time. But I think for now we're still in the very beginning stages of this. You still see a lot of development, you still see a lot of building permits being issued. I don't think, like I said, I don't think there's much sympathy yet from you know, from I guess those who initially were kind of a little NIMBY or anti-development to begin with. You know.
Yeah.
I don't, Mia, what do you think?
No, I agree, and I think especially with like COVID being so like obviously prominent right now, and like from what we've heard from other podcast guests, it doesn't really seem like there's been a major slowdown. Like Lori has said, she just sold her, like had her deal go through, and it seems like there was initially a little slowdown, but it seems like everything is sort of in terms of like development world picked back up.
Absolutely. It seems this is weird. I think the pandemic, what I will give credit for, I don't want to be political in this conversation, but what I will give credit to the government, federal government, in doing is they acted quickly in providing a bridge, right? And so I think, you know, the Fed has pumped in about 2, 3, 4, I don't know what the numbers are, but trillions, right, into the market. So now the stock market are still at all-time highs, not representing Main Street, the small businesses, the bankruptcies, you know, all of that stuff that's going on is not having any effect because the Fed decided, look, we can't have the market fall off the cliff because it's not in anyone's control. It's a pandemic, right? For a reason. So they've done a good job on that front. The rent moratorium, I think the CDC guys announced, I read this morning, a rent moratorium right now. And you're like, well, why does the CDC have anything to do with it? Well, the way they explain it is they say it's actually a health crisis if you have, you know, people being evicted, right? And they go to homeless shelters or they're out in public and they start spreading coronavirus, right? And so they've tied the, you know, kind of that to a health crisis, which, look, I think for whatever you'll say is still a blanket or a bridge, right? And so now we have that covering. So if we're going to already provide stimulus or the Fed pumping in money or, you know, preventing, you know, evictions and all these people out there having extreme hardships, it delays the effect, right? So I think the brokers are residential, commercial, they're doing a lot of transactions. There's been a lot of pent-up demand, but I think it's due to the safety net that the government's provided, if that makes sense, right? We'll have to see if this prolongs what happens next year, because if without a safety net, if you let the true market be as it is, then you're going to see a lot of pain. Then you're going to see a lot of more foreclosures and spiraling. But from what I could see, I don't know. I think they're just going to keep spending, continuing the bridge, which I think is the right way to go. I think you can't blame market participants for a global pandemic, if that makes sense, right? So that's just some, extreme kind of situation that no one can control. So you have to bridge everyone through that, and then we'll have to deal with surplus debt afterwards. But anyway, sorry, I don't want to get into that conversation. So yeah, guys, I just wanted to kind of end this conversation. I really appreciate you guys coming on, especially Jordan, as well on short notice. I want to see if you could be on future podcasts here. But I want to keep it very light. But I do want to provide information and value for our listeners and for our viewers exclusively if we could tie in more land use information, right? And I think Jordan would be a great guest moving forward. But I want to kind of end it with kind of a last thing. And so I've always created open-ended questions, right? And these questions have kind of stumbled some of our past guests. So I don't want to make it, I don't want to box you in. So let's just do this. On a takeaway on what we discussed so far with ADUs and housing and kind of what's going on, is there anything you want to share, or maybe you want to add to the conversation as an end value to our viewers, right? So, and it's open-ended, so it could be anything. We could start with Jordan.
Nothing really. I don't know. Maybe Mia can kind of get my stage fright out of the way.
I think when you talked about like the safety net, right, of the government, like especially with the banning evictions and everything, and like keeping on with the funding, and I think it is important, right, that we have those safety nets, and that it helps obviously the market continue, it helps develop and still happen. But I think it does become a question of also where is that money coming from, right? How can we keep supporting that? How long can we support that for? And I don't know. To be honest, I haven't looked into it that much, but I think that is also, I'm sure, is already on their minds. But I do think that is an important question also right now.
Yeah, and I just want to add, I think all topics that were discussed today are going to be part of a ongoing conversation. I mean, this is part of a much smaller, part of a much larger conversation, right? And so I just hope that our viewers found some value in this, and hope that they are inclined to kind of tune in next time, and maybe we can dive into the weeds on some other stuff going on here with real estate and land use and development going on in the city.
I got it. My last statement is, for you guys, I've never asked this from you, but I think from what we've talked about, sign up, go on brickwork.la, sign up as a user, because these new reports that are coming are going to be for a wider net of users, right? So we're going to be marketing to the single lot subdivision developers, fix and flippers, right, that want to decide to kind of build, but they want to start at a smaller scale. So they want to build, a single family home or maybe a duplex all the way up to 4 units. We announced here that we're going to be providing these massing model analysis reports that directly come from an architecture firm, right? And so they do this on a day-to-day. They saw an opportunity. They really love what we do as far as taking what Jordan and Irvine Associates does. They do the full-on going to the hearings, getting you the entitlement, and that's its own journey, right? And it takes a lot of steps and a lot of guidance. And so we took what Jordan and Irvine does and put it in a very initial light report that we provide, but not that it doesn't have value. We really created Brickwork as kind of an introduction for brokers that don't know land use and zoning to be able to talk to developers, market their properties, prospect. And then for developers, they love our reports because it at least checks off the initial due diligence for, restrictions or, ordinances or specific, or is something on a specific plan that they missed, right? Queue conditions, delimitations. I mean, there's so many things initially as a checkoff that our reports do, but the more value we're providing is an architect to look at it and start to mass it physically. Because we always just give you, hey, build 100 units. But Jordan could say, right, like those, projects that he's working on right now, even though that you could have built 100 and everyone wants to get to that max limit, they probably built 90, 95. It just, there's so many variables, right? Physical variables to that site that determine what ends up being built there by the developer. So that's my parting thought is, register, pull a Brickwork report, and then if you're a developer watching this or a broker, then I would highly recommend Irvine and Associates and Jordan as your planner to be able to take your case and get it fully entitled. So that's it for me. That's it for you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.